Moin Hamburg. I'm super excited to be here to talk about composability. My German is very rusty. I live in Berlin, so you can imagine how bad my German would be. So I'm not going to try to attempt and speak in German. And the screen has gone blank again. I think maybe because I say Berlin. I do have another adapter. We can try that. Gonna stay away from this. All right, Moin Hamburg. We had a rough start, but it was, I think, a bit fun for you all, and it helped me also lose some tension. It's not gonna do that, I don't think so. Why did I say Berlin? Just don't tell this to my friends in Berlin. They're gonna kick me out. All right, take 100, I don't know. But yeah, welcome all to the talk, Composability, the new architect in town. Some of you might have heard about the word. For some of you, it might be completely new. But before I jump into the talk, I would like to thank the organizers for organizing such a wonderful conference. Giving a talk in a movie theater gives you a different kind of feeling, which is fun, scary, all at the same time. I'm not going to waste a lot of your time. I'm just going to do a quick introduction about myself. My name is Harshil Agrawal, and I work as a developer advocate at Contentful. For the folks who don't know what Contentful is, I'm going to do a quick introduction. Contentful is a composable content platform with an API-first architecture. Using Contentful, you can manage your content and orchestrate content from multiple platforms and publish it on any channels of your choice. But apart from doing everything with Contentful, I like to think about myself as an experimentalist because I try out different technologies, different tech stacks, and share those learnings with the community. One of the fun things that I have been doing recently is exploring the Web HID API. It's basically a web browser API which allows you to connect your HID devices, think of your PS5 controllers or your Xbox controllers, to your web applications and just bring on that experience to your users. If you are interested to take a look around the Web HID API, I have given a couple of talks on that, so you can find that on my website. And I'm also learning digital illustration. This has been happening for a year. Haven't gotten any better than this, but this is what it is. So a couple of illustrations that you see over in this slides are my own work. All right, so the agenda for this particular talk looks something like this. We're gonna all build a website together. It's just gonna be a very simple website, but we're gonna look into the complexities that come into the picture. We're gonna discuss a couple of solutions like the monolithic architecture. We're gonna talk about the limitations of it. We're gonna then go into microservices and see how it is gonna solve the limitations that the monolithic architecture presents. And then we're gonna talk about composable architecture, which is the main theme of this talk. So before we want to build a website, we start doing some research. We start looking at the requirements. And I am a very ambitious person. I like to have everything that I am building to be perfect. So I thought, why not give the users an ability to do shopping on the website? Why not build a platform where the users can also improve their skills and learn new things? Why not make it an entertainment website as well, where people can just go in, watch videos, go through the cat gifs, and just have some fun. And also maybe a platform where people can just connect with each other and maybe share memes or have a video call or stuff like that. Now, if we take a pause over here, this is what we basically do on the internet. We use the internet either for shopping or for entertainment purposes or for learning or socializing with friends. Now, if you take a step further back, think what's common over here. All these things are somehow or the other related with content. In the past couple of years, the amount of content that we have generated is massive. And that is not just because we got the platforms, but because also the need, the consumption of this content that we saw. Because again, I am an ambitious person, I want to make sure that the website that I am building is successful. I looked up for a couple of stats to find out what my competition looks like. And this is my competition. 2 billion websites. And this is my reaction, like, what? How am I gonna be able to grab the attention of my users where there are 2 billion existing websites out there? But again, a crazy ambitious person says challenge accepted. Let's build the best website that my users, which are dogs, not humans, but dogs, can use. Now, being an ambitious person, I again want to make sure that it's scalable. So if all the dogs on the planet and beyond use the website, nothing should break and it should be reliable. Everyone should get the same experience throughout. So I sat down with my team and started discussing like what we need to do. We started thinking about marketing first, then the product development, because hey, we need to get the word out there. We need to see what the dogs are interested in. We need to make sure that we provide them that. We also want to make sure that once the product is launched, we have millions of users for the first sign up. So we take the first approach of having a static website where the content is also static. So now I have a marketing team which is producing content and an engineering team which is working on the website and the product as well. But things don't go really well because again, it's static content, which means that there's a difficulty to update the content. My marketing team is not technical enough to go in the HTML code and write that code and update the content in there. There's also not really a version or history of the content that we are changing or we are adding or we are updating. And again, it is time consuming because my marketing team found out that they made one small mistake in a sentence and now they want to get that changed. They would open up a Jira ticket for the engineering team and the engineering team would make those changes in their next sprint, which is very time consuming for them as well. And again, remember, if the engineering team is spending time in just updating the content that the marketing team provides, I'm never going to be able to launch my product. So I thought, hey, let's move on to a different solution and maybe use a CMS. This would allow my engineering team to work on their stuff and my marketing team to manage the content by themselves. So basically separating the presentation layer from the content layer. This was a solid idea and we started kind of enjoying it, but then we saw a couple of issues with this as well. This would load our website on the client's machine. Now dogs, let me tell you, are not happy when things go slow. They want things instantly on their machine. Hence, this wasn't really a good idea. And the other problem with this was it introduced the monolithic architecture. So if I wanted to introduce new features to my website, it really didn't make my life easy. That's why we heard about the headless CMS movement and we were like, hey, let's go ahead and try this. It helps us solve the problem that we are looking for. We still have a separate platform for our marketing team and we have our engineering team supporting the marketing team, but not getting annoyed with every small request that we have. And because the headless ecosystem has an API first approach, we can use one single platform and publish this content on multiple channels. Dogs also started getting into VR technologies. Let me tell you, they love that. So we are like, hey, now that we have a API, we have a headless CMS, let's use the same content that we have in our VR application. Mobile phones were also started getting a bit more popular in the dog community. So we also started looking into mobile applications. The best thing is it's front-end framework agnostic. So my team, who loves using the next JavaScript framework that was launched just yesterday to create the website, they could just go ahead and use it without a lot of trouble. But while we were doing this, we realized one thing, that we are not using just one single platform. And that's the case if you think about it. Even if it's a simple website, you are using different things for the website itself. For example, to manage your videos, your images, your digital assets, you might be using a digital asset management system. If you are building a e-commerce store, you might use a PAIM. And if you want to give a full-fledged experience to your users, you might use an ECM. And again, on top of this, you are still using a content management system for your marketing website. So 4 different platforms, 4 different APIs to deal with. This again introduced a lot of limitations. The first thing, the teams were now working in silos. The team that was managing the products had a different product description, had a different product image, while the team that was creating the content had some different information. This resulted in inconsistent user experience. The dogs would now see a different information on the product page, but a completely different information on the blog page. And this also resulted in slow development because, again, 4 different APIs to deal with, which wasn't a fun experience for the developers. So we sat down, we talked about potential solutions, and we learned about monolithic architecture. But not everyone in the room understood what monolithic architecture was. So we came up with an analogy to understand this. Now, how many of you know what a jigsaw puzzle is? Can I get a show of hands? All right, for my friends who don't really know what a jigsaw puzzle is, it's basically a set of pieces that you connect together to complete an image. So that's basically what a jigsaw puzzle is. But there are some caveats with that puzzle. You cannot easily swap out pieces, or you cannot easily swap out these pieces or replace them with each other. They all fit together well, but they are not replaceable. You cannot expand them, you cannot grow them. And that's basically the limitation with monolithic architecture as well. With monolithic architecture, you get different pieces that you can fit in together, and things work well. But when you want to scale, but when you want to grow, when you want to introduce new things, it does not really scale well. We also learned that there was a reduce in the development speed because these components, they were dependent on each other. So unless and until one component was finished with, or one team was finished with developing that component, the other teams could not really work and focus on that component. Scalability also became an issue. Now we had the shopping website going live, but when we had traffic going on the shopping cart, it would also scale all the other parts of the website, which wasn't really helpful and wasn't really helping with our banks. And it was also not reliable because if one component fell down, if one piece in that jigsaw puzzle was not there, it was incomplete. Things would break. And again, as I mentioned, it was not flexible because you cannot easily introduce new pieces in this puzzle over here. So we early on learned that this is not what we really want. We want to go on with something that is more flexible and overcomes all these limitations that we have. And that's where we came across microservices. We saw that monolithic architecture is kind of like jigsaw puzzles. Microservices is basically like building blocks. You can arrange these blocks however you want, whatever shape you want. You can rearrange them, reorder them. Things are still going to work because these components are independent of each other. These blocks allow you to connect them in any way you want. So it allowed us to overcome the limitations of the monolithic architecture. Now things were scalable, things were flexible, and things were reliable. But again, it still had one minor issue. Remember, a dog friend was going on the product page where they saw different information, while that same product had a different information on our blog page. So there was still inconsistency in the user experience. There was still inconsistency in the content that we had. And that's where composability came into the picture. Now, oftentimes when we talk about composability, people often think that composability is different than microservices. But guess what? It's not. Composability is built on top of microservices. It uses the same principles of microservices. But in composability, we now think about these building blocks as components with certain characteristics. And these characteristics are modularity. So each component can be broken down into an individual module, which again can be reused wherever you want. And they are interoperable, which means that these components can talk to each other whenever needed. They are not working in silos all the time, unless you really want them to. So now we have a CMS, we have a DAM, we have a PIM, and we have an ECM. We still have like 4 different platforms for our product or for our website. Developers still have to interact with 4 different APIs, and these APIs again have different structures. Some might follow the Open API standard, some might really not. Some would give you a GraphQL API, some would just give you a REST API. So things were like still not developer friendly. And this is where we learned about orchestration. So orchestration is basically the capability of bringing in your content from different platforms to a single platform. And using one single API call, you can publish or use that content wherever you want, or use that information wherever you want. So the composability basically introduced 2 new things. It gave an introduction to orchestration, which allowed you to bring content from different platforms to a single platform and use one API call, or use just one, or interact this with one API and then manage one API. And because now you could orchestrate content, you could easily reuse this content wherever you want. You were not sitting in silos. Because we can now orchestrate content into our platform, we were now able to provide same information for the product that we have on the product page as well as on the blog page. Our dog user would able to see things consistently across all the channels that we have for the same thing. And this is what actually the application layer for our platform now looks like. So we have a data layer which contains all the data information that we have, a platform layer which would contain identification services, personalization services, and then an experience layer, which basically is where or the tools that the developers would use to integrate all this information coming in from the platform layer. And then there would be the channels where we would publish all our information. Now, again, if you see in the platform layer, we early on in our journey learned that content is where the place where we are basically gathering this information, and we needed the reusability capabilities. We thought this might be the best place to have the orchestration feature. Now, based on your scenario, you might want to have orchestration at a different platform layer or even at a data layer. It really depends on your use case. So let's take a quick look at the advantages of what this particular architecture brought to us. Now, because these components were modular, I could scale each component individually without scaling all the components altogether, which really helped me save my AWS bill, and I was like able to survive this. And then again, it made it really flexible for me. When my startup grew, when my company grew, we learned that, all right, this particular platform isn't working for us, and we want to update or maybe just change the whole platform and bring in a new platform. Now again, because these are modular components, I could easily swap them out and introduce a new platform. It also introduced the capabilities of reusing the components that I already have, of reusing the things that I already have without creating the components again and again, or without creating that data again and again. And coming from the front-end framework background, I really love this idea of reusability, because we often create components which we reuse throughout our application. So this kind of gave me a feeling that I am back home. And because we were reusing the components that we had, we were providing consistent experience to our users. And again, because all these components were modular, my team could work individually on each of these components, and we could ship the things faster. So to do a quick recap, microservices is like jigsaw puzzles, which makes it difficult to introduce new platforms, new services to that architecture. Sorry, monolith is like a jigsaw puzzle, whereas microservices is like building blocks, which makes it a bit more easier to introduce the new stack. Whereas composability is built on top of microservices, and it adds more features to microservices like reusability and orchestration. Now that we have a successful product out there, our users are super happy, and we got like good recommendations from across the globe. So that's it from me. Thank you all for listening over here, and I hope you had learned something new today.